Recommendation to council for an expenditure plan for teen programs from the net revenue collected from 455 Bryant Street rent. And could we please have a staff report?
You certainly can. My name is Rob DeGose, representing the Community Services Department. Good to be here and see you all. I'm joined here at the table by a couple of Alto High School students, Riley Burt, representing the Teen Arts Council, and Fabian Garbuno, representing Click PA, which is a program you'll hear a little bit about as part of the presentation. We have some additional guests in the audience, but we'll introduce them later as we talk about some of the examples and projects that we'd like to apply the funding to. We were last for the Policy and Services Committee in November 19th, where the committee recommended to Council an expenditure plan for this fiscal year of $30,000, and Council later approved that expenditure. But by way of a background, the City Teen Services Team, which is made up of community services staff, library staff that oversee teen programs, has been meeting since September to plan for the use of this new funding stream. Staff has gathered a lot of feedback from the teen community. We've held a number of focus groups. We've reached out to local partners as part of developing this recommendation before you this evening. And some of the highlights, as you read in the staff report, that we learned from the teen community, things they're interested in, are more opportunities for self-directed recreation, socialization, unstructured spaces, more opportunities for visual and performing arts, safe, welcoming spaces, particularly in the evening hours, volunteer opportunities, these, but pressure activities downtown. So we feel at this point we have a want to see, and a lot of it is to be self-directed as much as possible. So as we thought about how best to go about creating these programs, we get to the recommendation that's before you, and really it's to fund 3 teen activity specialists that would be assigned, one to the libraries, one to the Arts and Sciences Division of Community Services, and one to the Recreation Division, and they would be part-time hourly staff that could work up to 1,000 hours a year, so a total of 3,000 hours. The idea then would be also to allocate an expense budget of $24,000 to the activities and programs that they develop with their teen sponsors that would be split up evenly among the group. As I mentioned before, the Palo Alto teens, and you'll hear about this as we get into the presentation, have a strong desire to be involved in the planning of the programs and the services, and want the flexibility to experiment with ideas across a variety of interests. The 3 teen activity specialists that we would then hire after July 1st, if this gets approved by this committee and the council, we would hire them after July 1st, and they would essentially form a work unit and a team to develop programs together and independently at times as well. The process, fairly simple in terms of how programs would get planned and reviewed and evaluated. There was a little flow chart in the staff report, but essentially it's the idea is that teens come up with the ideas. Most likely, most of them would come from our teen leadership groups, the Teen Arts Council, the Palo Alto Youth Council, the Teen Advisory Board that works with recreation, and the Library Teen Advisory Board. Once they have an idea, we would have them fill out a fairly simple form that would define what it is that they're trying to accomplish, how many teens are going to be impacted by the activity, how they're going to that type of thing, get some budget information. And the city's teen services team, the regular staff, would review those proposals, and then once approved, we'd go back to the teen sponsor and activity specialist for implementation. And then we would go back and evaluate how successful they were. And the last part of the recommendation is that we would have the Palo Alto Youth Council at their annual study session with the City Council just report out on how these funds are being used and the impact that it's having. So we felt like that was a pretty good approach. We don't have sort of specific programs necessarily that we're presenting that we want to implement, but what we do have is sort of a flavor of different programs that we think fit the types of things that we would have these teen activity specialists do. And so what I'd like to do now, is, as opposed to me talking about it, is have 3 examples, and you hear from some of the students and some of the staff that have been working with the students, and you'll get a sense of how we would apply this new resource. And the first one is Click PA, And the staff representative is Jen Marsh, right here. And she's going to come either join us or... And we'll just take a few minutes on each of these, and then that'll end the presentation and back to the council.
So good evening, I'm Jennifer Marsh. I'm representing the Community Services Department, and with me are Ali Gong and Fabo Gardunio, who will tell you a little bit about how ClickPA started and where we are now. Alright, so ClickPA started in 2012 with 4 high school students, and Ali is one of them. She'll tell you a little bit about how she got started with ClickPA. And we were actually able to start ClickPA with a grant from the PA Weekly Holiday. So it's the PA Weekly Holiday Grant. So Ali, do you want to talk a little bit about how you started with ClickPA?
Okay, so I jumped onto the project as part of Youth Collaborative. I didn't know too much about it, but once we started, we basically wanted to build something that would be able to help every teen in Palo Alto. And we decided to do something regarding the events and opportunities in Palo Alto, and just come up with something that would make things easier and funner for every teen.
Great, and so then Fabo joined this year, and he'll tell you a little bit about how far we've come. And actually, at the beginning of this year, you approved some funds for ClickPA, so we were really excited to amp up our efforts and increase the amount of teens that we were able to reach and involve. So that's the next slide, Bob.
So far, when I got into ClickPA, which was around the same time we had the previous meeting, ClickPA was run by like 2 students, and it was like a tacky website which didn't work well. No offense, guys. And
We tried.
yeah, so I brought in new people. We got good staffing. We created something that started out as a very weak resource, and now it's a very powerful website with like Facebook and Twitter, and we're spreading out to try to get teens to come to these events. Because our problem was that we had all these events like and opportunities like internships, jobs, open mics, movie nights, etc. around Palo Alto, and teens were simply not attending because they never got the news. So we tried to create the missing link of making a calendar event website where all of this could be funneled into as a resource for teenagers. Since then, with the funds that we've been granted before, we were able to buy posters and flashcards and stuff for a dessert contest we had on Instagram for teenagers. We've been able to like grow and start hopefully trying to get an app through the Palo Alto Arts app challenge, which we'll be talking about later.
Yeah, so I just want to tell you, so now we have 6 interns who are high school students, 4 from Palo, 2 from Gunn, and some of the funds go towards actually paying these students for their hard work as well. We also have 2 event bloggers, or is it 1? They're kind of coming and going. These are high school students who are casually committing volunteer time to ClickPA to find events in the community and bring them to us. And we're also currently working with the Palo Android Club. So this is what ClickPA looks like now, and as you can see, there's a lot of things. It's a little dark, but there's a lot of things that ClickPA covers. It is the co-created one-stop activity central for high school students in and around Palo Alto, and our hope is that it is one resource for students to stay engaged, to feel included, and to cultivate a sense of belonging in Palo Alto, to boost youth self-worth, and to also just find great things to do locally, so they don't have to go to the city to have fun. All right, so what is ClickPA? It is basically one continual updated teen-curated events calendar. That's the main resource on ClickPA. It also gives students an opportunity to share reviews and photos of events. We also list ongoing classes and activities in and around Palo Alto. We also added a listing of teen jobs, internships, and volunteer opportunities. There's also tons of other local opportunities for involvement, and we also feature a one-stop summer planner. So all these things are on clickpa.org, and I'll show you a few examples next of how that actually looks on the website. This is our events calendar. The events are contributed by ClickPA staff, by the event bloggers, whose only job it is to find great things in Palo Alto and to share them with the team. And then also anyone from the community can submit something to ClickPA. And the great thing is that it is actually the ClickPA core staff, these 6 interns, who are looking at these events and deciding whether or not they're good enough to go on to ClickPA. So it really is a team-curated events calendar. This is one example of the volunteer tab under work experience. So you can see there's a lot of things, and we've actually been really successful in reaching out to community members and having them submit opportunities to us. If you look at the opportunities tabs, we have mentorships, art, science and tech, auditions, contests, sports. So this is an example of the science and tech, and as you can see, there's also always an upcoming events bar on the side. And then finally, it's really easy to share opportunities and to share anything that you want to see on Click PA. You just fill out this form, it gets sent to our event manager, who's one of the core staff, the 6 high school students, and she looks at it, and if she thinks it needs more conversation, then all the core staff, the 6 high school students, talk about it at one of their many monthly meetings. And then it gets posted, and then Bethany, the events manager, has been really great about sending everyone an email back and saying, we've posted it, here's how it looks, let us know if you want more. So she's been really great about getting everyone involved and engaged. And so now I want to tell you about some of our other initiatives to get in touch with the local teams, because so far the greatest challenge has been, we exist, we're awesome, how do the teams get to know about us? And here's where some of the funding that you have approved and hopefully will approve again will really help us. So one of the things we were able to do, well, I'll let you talk about it, but so we've reached out to the local teams through a variety of other social media to drive them to the website and to let them know of our existence. And so Ali and Fabo will talk for the last few minutes about the 3 initiatives that we have going on.
Okay, so one of the ideas that we've recently added to Click PA is the idea of a monthly Instagram contest. So the key word for this would be convenience. A lot of teams are already sharing their daily adventures in the city. So we want to make it as simple as we can for them, and all they have to do is add a hashtag ClickPA to their post, and it automatically gets pulled into our contest, and they're eligible to win a $10 gift card. So we have monthly themes, like March's theme was desserts, just like a lot of themes relating to the city and things that you can find here.
And then April is prom, right?
Also, since the opening of Click PA, we started out about a month ago with 4 likes on Facebook, and we've grown to 89, which is a pretty good amount. They're all non-advertised likes, so they're not bought. They're all like by individuals in Palo Alto who have found our website and started getting like excited about it.
Yeah, and so can you say how many, and I was recently looking at it in preparation for this meeting, and I was really impressed with how many people our posts actually reach on Facebook, so you can actually see the numbers.
Yeah, our post has reached, most posts get above 100 views, so that means that there's 100 individual people around Palo Alto seeing our post and getting aware of our events. We post like a short summary and a picture with a link to the actual event page and a link to the like here it says events with the actual Facebook event and more info to our website, so we can funnel in more people, get them aware of Click PA. Our numbers have gone up, and we've been thinking about doing advertisement, because then we can do selective advertisement where people only in Palo Alto get a little advertisement in the sidebar of Facebook and Twitter and so far, and then we can get more reach it up to 1,000, 2,000, 3,000 teenagers in Palo Alto that would be able to see all of these events.
And that would be especially great to boost attendance for city-sponsored teen events, because there are so many events that Teen Arts Council puts on, and it would be really great to not only feature them on Click PA, but then use our Facebook to also really reach larger audiences. And the 2 of you will also talk about this. It's very exciting. We were chosen as a finalist for the Palo Alto Apps Challenge, and so everyone's furiously working on building this app, which will feature a calendar and possibly even some other things. I haven't worked with the group for the last 2 months, so there's so much new going on, I don't know. But so the 2 of you will now talk what's happening with this.
So basically what happened, we decided to enter the app challenge. That way we can have like a mobile version of our website. And we got together with the Android Development Club, which is like a tech club at Pali, and we started making a website. And currently this is what we have now, which is just text, because we're just a bunch of teenagers trying to do advanced coding. And this is what we're trying to get at, where you can see all the events. And so I threw them with the date, where they are, when you can click on it, and it opens like a quick summary.
So this is actually really important to the outreach of our ad, because the idea is basically convenience. We don't want teens to go out of their way to find these things. We want them to kind of just receive it naturally. So having a mobile version is actually really great for the audience that we're trying to reach.
Great. So just some concluding thoughts, which is So I do hope that you will decide to continue supporting Click PA. We've been able to do so much and come really far, and I've definitely seen a great boost in activity and excitement since we were able to get some funding from the city and, you know, pay for web hosting and pay for some printing and pay for some ad sponsorship. So I can just see the group taking off and continuing and bringing in more and more teams. So thank you for your time.
It's team-led, it provides internship opportunities, it has good reach, and it's something that we've already presented to you all, and you approved it, and it's happening now, so it's a really good example, I think, of how these teen activity specialists that we hope to hire would continue to support these students. So the next example is Riley Burt here is going to, yeah. Oh, stop and, okay.
I'm a junior.
Hi, I'm Riley. I'm a senior at Palo. So I'm here to represent Teen Arts Council. It's a teen-run organization based in the Children's Theater at Lucy Stern Center. We've existed for about 5 years, and we put on a variety of different arts events. If you're more of a numbers person, with 45 teens, collectively, they have put in 2,900 community service hours. That's about 65 community service hours per year per teen. So to give you an idea of what we kind of do, so we put on movie nights, middle school dances. Right now we're putting on a film project through the Big Read. So we're making a short film based off the novel Old School by Tobias Wolff, an author at Stanford. Next year, we have a film festival coming in, and this year we put on the Hurricane Music Festival. You may or may not have heard about it. And one of our most prominent events are our open mics, and so I guess next slide. So over the past year, we have had about 1,000 teens come to these open mics for our audience. We have about 15 to 20 performers per open mic, and they can really do whatever they want. Generally, it's music or some kind of comedy routine or poetry, but they can really do whatever they want. And so, suffice to say, we're a fairly successful organization, but we constantly find ourselves being limited by chaperones or, you know, not having enough money to put on events, because unfortunately you need both of those things when you're a teen. And so I feel that with this plan, it would make our lives a lot easier and allow us to put on bigger and more events, which I think would be a great thing for everyone.
Thank you, Riley. So yeah, the Teen Arts Council has really been growing a lot over these last few years, and kudos to Judge Lucky at the Children's Theatre, who's the manager there, that helped get that off the ground initially in, I think it was 2009 or 10, and he's just been really supportive of more teen programming at the Children's Theatre, and it's really blossoming. It's great. And so again, we would have the teen activity specialist to support the Teen Arts Council as they continue to grow. So nice job. And the last one. Sorry.
It was just a creative name put on. I don't know. I wasn't involved with naming it, so I don't really know.
Let me introduce the last one here then, and that is Karen Kinzel, who's our phenomenal director of the Palo Alto Arts Center. She does outstanding work over there for all ages, but teens as well. And she has worked with a number of high school students on this Make X program, which is another really terrific example of the types of things we would have these teen activity specialists work on with Palo Alto students.
Good evening. I'm Karen Kinsel, Director of the Palo Alto Art Center. So we wanted to introduce you to MakeX. MakeX is a mobile makerspace created by and for teens. And before I introduce you to our guests, I wanted to kind of highlight some of our goals for this project. MakeX was really created in response to community need. One of the things that we heard in the community was that teens wanted a third place, a place of their own, a place that wasn't school and wasn't home. And we wanted to respond to that. Just want to run through these goals quickly. We wanted to engage participating teens in a design thinking process and actually help teach design thinking. And we wanted to create an environment in which teen voices were heard and validated. More goals. And I'd now like to introduce some of the designers. We actually had 22 designers participate in this project. The teens were called designers. That was a title that the teens identified. So we have James Wang, Jeremy Trilling, Lavanya Mahadan, I'm
Lavanya Mahadevan.
yes, thank you, and Nathan Cow. And maybe each of you can say what grade and what school you guys are in.
I'm a sophomore at Pali.
I'm also a sophomore at Pali.
I'm a freshman at Pali.
And I'm a sophomore at Pali. Okay, so in the process of making MakeX, we involved a lot of teens, obviously. We visited local makerspaces, such as one in Stanford, the Crucible in Oakland. We visited IDEO, a company in downtown, and they taught us all the skills we needed to know to create an interactive and effective, efficient makerspace where we could effectively just teach the teens that visit us. Yeah. Okay. So when we were learning about design thinking, we went to IDEO, and they taught us all the skills. We had to empathize with our audience to know what they wanted. We had to define all our goals. And we prototyped MakeX with some beta testing, and we finally tested with the public. And during this process, we documented everything, and we have lots of documentation for the creation of the process, so it will be easily replicatable in the future.
Okay, so this is the prototyping stage. So we really wanted to make sure that we had everything really well thought out before we just jumped into things. So we prototyped each different kind of furniture plan or space that we were thinking of having, and it was really successful in helping us pinpoint our audience and our thoughts.
In the picture here, you can see some of the furniture that we are prototyping. On the left, we have display shelves that were later made final by a consulting company, and then on the right, we have a tool shed that we designed out of cardboard.
This was another really important stage in the process, kind of allocating the budget and deciding what was most important to us in our equipment selection. We wanted to make sure that we had a really large range of equipment that catered to all types of people, but also we had to keep the budget in mind, of course.
For the installation, we got all of our materials and tools at the Palo Alto Art Center, and it was kind of like Christmas because we had all these boxes and unpackaging everything. And we set up shop at the Palo Alto Art Center first and tested it out as a open makerspace to the public.
Okay, so during the initial opening, we all got to beta test our own work, and we found the kinks in our design, and through the input of teen visitors that came to the beta testing and also our own team, we could iron out all the problems with MakeX and just make it better. So, you want to talk about this?
So this was a design that is a hexagonal tool rack, which has internal and also external tool storage. And the bottom there's a triangular rotating tool rack which is for some other tools, whatever you like. Here's a folding table that we designed and was eventually fabricated. We chose a triangle because there's so many different configurations you can have for varying people at the desks, and you can have it individually or a whole conference table.
This is one of our most popular pieces of furniture. It's the bouncing stool. So it's basically a circular base with a bouncy ball on top that you can sit on. And it has storage underneath for your stuff if you want to keep it there. And it took a really long time to figure out how to make this work. But it's pretty cool.
Here you can see the final version of the make shelves. We keep them in the front of MakeX to show off people's works. I think it's a really basically beautiful display case that says MakeX. Storage walls, this is originally prototyped, and then we got fabricated with these French cleats, and they're super useful for holding everything in MakeX, all the pencils, scissors, everything like that. Open hours, our current open hours are Fridays 4 to 6 p.m. and Sundays 2 to 5, and we're at the Cumberland Community Center, F7. We were at two previous occasions, the Art Center and also City Hall. You might have seen us there. And then we are the MakeX teen staff. We're paid mentors, and then Lavanya here is the paid scheduler. Okay, stories from MakeX. This is the exciting part. All our design process, field trips, furniture is all made for an amazing experience for the teen community. We've had dozens of teens consistently come to MakeX. They spent like pretty much dozens, possibly with a few of them probably like 100 hours at MakeX building. We have projects, everything from laser cut projects that people design. This is just something that we did for people to come by and make in a few minutes. More complicated projects, this jewelry rack. And then the most amazing thing I think is that while we designed this project, most of the people come in with their own ideas and they're able to make it. So this is probably the project that the most hours is spent on. It's over the past about 3 months, 6 teenagers, our friends, have been coming in for an English project. It's not really an English project, but they've spent hundreds of hours making these longboards that they plan to sell. So you want to pick it up? We help them through the process of learning how to use the tools required, so like the bandsaw, the sanders, the grinding, the Dremels, files, just everything, the painting. This is one of our projects that James and I put together. It's a rocket that we've been building, all done at MakeX with MakeX tools. A little help from home with this 3D printed item, but it's really amazing to see what teens have been able to do at MakeX, and we hope to keep doing this.
So at MakeX, most of the people come in to design their own things, and all we do is facilitate that designing. We teach computer-aided design software where they can create 3D models of their projects before they start. And again, we just help them with their ideas, and they create all their own things.
Thank you, MakeX team. So I just want to conclude with highlighting the fact that our initial goal was really to create a starter makerspace. This was funded by a California State Library grant, and it was really only intended to fund us through March. And we would love to be able to sustain this further along. So funding could provide more staff hours, increased hours, additional mentors. It also could provide us to purchase more materials and create some workshops for the public that could be very engaging. So, more information, and this is our credit line for the grant that funded this project initially. Thank you.
Is there any reason that the 3 of you are wearing orange shirts?
This is the uniform that we wear at MakeX because all the visitors are high schoolers, so it's kind of hard to distinguish who we are.
Orange is the color code. Yeah, come on back up. So that sort of concludes our presentation. I think another great example there at the end with the MakeX program, where this is give you a flavor of the types of things that we want to fund and to support and do more of with these teen activity specialists and with a little additional funding support. And the plan would be a sustainable plan. We expect to, we, the city, will generate $85,000 this fiscal year for teen services, teen programs from the 455 Bryant Street rental revenue. So it doesn't draw down on the reserve. It's also the hiring of temporary hourly staff, not permanent staff that are benefited. So we can, after a year, evaluate whether this is something that's working and we're generating a lot of interesting fun programs for the teens, or if we want to do something a little different. But with that, open up for questions from the council.
Thank you. Colleagues, do you have any questions, comments? Councilmember Klein.
I think it's great. I'm all for the expenditure that you're recommending. My concern is the use of or non-use of the reserve. My first question is, I assume that the reserve continues to grow. It has interest at what rate? The city, is it ordinary savings rate or some other rate?
I would think it's the ordinary savings rate, but I would have to get back to you.
I'm concerned as to why the reserve. It's about 2.5 times the annual expenditure, so what are we reserving for?
Something really cool is what I'm thinking. I mean, the point here is that when I think we can draw down on the reserve, and we ought to do that. It's there, and it's there for the Palo Alto teens, but once it's gone, it's gone. So we're really thinking about how best to invest that.
We're not in the habit of keeping big. We do have a reserve for rainy days on the overall city budget, but this is different. I'm actually not happy that there's no program for the use of it. And I just think that sitting there isn't going to do us a lot of good.
Well, we certainly can put some really hot thought into how best to spend down that reserve and bring that back to the committee. We're happy to do that.
Yeah, it's going to be my motion when we get around.
Okay.
Yes, Councilmember Schmidt.
In a way, you were too successful. You've done exciting things generated by staff, but really run by the students. Why money? It's, I think we're trying to identify how would the extra money be useful. Why would 3 part-time personnel make a difference? Would that take some of the leadership away from the kids who are now designing the programs?
Yeah, certainly that wouldn't be the intent, but I will tell you, and it doesn't maybe come across in the presentation, but the staff time that is going into supporting these programs, like the MakeX example, where we did get some grant funding to support the program, the grant didn't help with any staff support, so really we had our director of the Arts Center spending a lot of additional hours to her regular work to make it happen. But that's not sustainable in the long term. And beyond that, these are 3 examples. We hope to do even more. Like Riley talked about with the Teen Arts Council. They have.
Yeah, is there some sense of the number of kids that might be involved in your current programs and what you would like to see? Just some sense of scale.
Well, it depends on the program by program. I think the best place to look would be the SEA report, or the cities, and it has numbers in there, statistics for teen programs versus preschool versus schools. And I don't recall the actual number, but it's in the 1,000 plus in terms of impact.
I guess one of the nice things is the kids can come and design their own program, presumably with leadership as you expand. There'd be a whole set of new ideas, new things that you'd be looking for.
Right. And so a core sort of principle behind this this recommendation is that as much as possible we have students leading the charge, leading the program, leading the event. What we want to do is surround them with as much support as we can and mentorship as we can.
Yeah.
Yeah, definitely. The long story about MakeX is that MakeX actually started with an Institute for Museum and Library Services grant that Monique and I wrote, Monique Lacan, library director. We didn't get that grant, but we retooled the grant for the California State Library, and in that process ended up cutting out the contract staff to manage the project because we couldn't ask for as much money from the California State Library. So it was a labor of love for me and a labor of love for my staff, and so we committed to making it happen. And this is a project that's really driven by the participating teens, but the teens do need city staff who can help them navigate some of the bureaucracy involved in our day-to-day lives, and they do require some mentorship. We've actually asked the participating teens what makes sense in terms of structure for them, and they would like a meeting with staff every 2 weeks. And so right now it's me and another staff member. We would love to have a staff member who could help be that mentor and that supporter for teens. Click PA is a great example too, with Jennifer's leadership and mentorship. So again, these are really, these are incredibly talented, directed teens, but they do need mentorship from city staff.
Good. A couple other, yeah.
So basically, going off on her point, it's simply we're all organizations run by teens, and it's basically run by teens, but adding like an adult worker that would help us out, our progress would, it would grow so much bigger. For example, with Click PA, having someone who knows about apps, about code, about HTML that will work with us would be great, because we're still learning about how to make a website, how to make publicity. Having someone there to guide us would be great. And like ClickPay, we're trying to expand, start sponsoring events and other stuff. And with a person that works with the city, knows with the city, we can ask them questions like, is this possible? Is that possible? Can we have an event this big here? Do you know someone who can help us out with the publicity and stuff like that? And simply doing it by ourselves, it's possible, but our rate of success wouldn't be as high as if it was with it.
Yeah. Just a couple other quick comments. You have a budget page in the back, which looks sort of bureaucratic. I would think to generate excitement among like council members, if you could list the types of things that you might spend money on, like you had some concrete examples of where you'd spend money. And I think, lists like that would be helpful for us, and I think it'd be helpful for the kids to say, gee, because money is one thing that empowers them, allows them to do things that they can't do now.
Right.
So
others can add, but things that come to mind, certainly there's simple things like printing costs, and we talked about the MakeX program. If we want to continue that they need materials to actually build things, and so there's some support for that. One of the things that was really important to the teens that we heard from the survey and focus group was internship opportunities and job opportunities, rather than just work at Pete's or Phil's or whatever. But it's much more interesting to get a little stipend to work for Click PA and design a website, or so spending money on that, and there are others.
The MakeX designers would love to buy a 3D printer, so that's one tangible item that could be immediately purchased and provide benefit to a wide range of folks.
And we do have a form that we ask the teen sponsors to complete, and that will be reviewed by staff, regular staff, Karen, myself, and others that make up that team, and we intentionally have a budget in there because we have the same question: what are the types of things that you want to spend on? So there'll be back and forth, and that's a great learning experience for the students too.
absolutely. I noticed that 5 of the 6 people were from Palo. Are you reaching all the students in town, the teens?
I don't know if we're reaching all the students, but depending on the different leadership groups, there's a different mix of students. I know that the teen advisory board that works with recreation is largely gun high school students. Palo Alto Youth Council is a pretty good mix, half-half. So I don't know about the Teen Arts Council. Is that mostly Pali?
Yeah, we're mostly Pali.
Mostly Pali.
The original group of MakeX teen designers, there were 22 designers, and we had a really wonderful mix of girls, of boys, of middle school students, and high school students. We actually had 2 from Eastside Prep in East Palo Alto, 1 from Mountain View, but a great mix of all the Palo Alto schools.
And that's a very good question. And as we developed the form that the teen sponsors would fill out, we also thought about that. And that's why we have the review of the city staff, because one of the things we'll be looking for is that we're reaching a lot of different types of kids with how we're funding projects. So it's not just one type of program.
So the beauty of these teen run programs is that we also really have the potential of reaching not just teens who are running the programs through our programs, but also the teens in the community. And my experience working with ClickPA over the last year and a half has been that they are so much more successful at reaching teens than we are because they're already friends with them on Facebook and they already know them. And I mean, everyone who is at Pali knows someone at Gunn and vice versa. And so ClickPA has 2 kids from Gunn and 4 from Pali on the core staff. And so all of those kids are committed to reaching out to their networks and to also expanding their networks as part of being part of ClickPA to just really reach the whole community. So you are reaching, you know, the teens who are actually committing as interns or volunteers with the city to running these programs, but also then their networks sort of fanning out.
Good. Thank you.
Okay, Councilmember Sharp?
Well, thank you. I mean, it sounds like ClickPA has been a resounding success. I mean, that's the sense I'm getting, right? So I'm sort of a nuts and bolts guy. I'm having a little trouble understanding exactly what we're doing here. So you want to take $85,000 roughly, right? $60,000 for 3 teen specialists.
Correct.
$24,000 for
Support, supplies, materials.
right. So that would be like a 3D printer if you decided to buy a 3D printer. It would be, how are those decisions on that 24,000 get spent? Do the teens get some input, or do you guys make the decision? How do we decide to buy a 3D printer versus not buy a 3D printer? So just explain it all to me.
Well, so it comes to the city staff, the regular city staff, in a proposal. Fill out a form and justify why they want to buy a 3D printer or whatever else it is, and give us some type of budget. Then the city staff will review that, see if it's reasonable, weigh it up against the other interests and proposals, and then we either approve it or not approve it. And then it gets purchased and the activity happens, and then it loops back to the teen services team to review the outcomes. Did we meet the intended outcomes, or did the teams meet the intended outcomes of the program?
So basically, the fundamental problem is that we don't have like specific items that we want to spend on, which is what I'm getting from the council. It's simply because we're teenagers. It's as simple as that. We don't see very far into the future. We're not like, we want open mic this date, this date, this date, because if you don't do things on the run, it doesn't really work out for us, because we're thinking about SATs, about college, etc., and we don't have time to be thinking that far in the future because we don't know if we're even going to be there that day. So basically, what we're asking for is having enough funds so that, let's say we're like, oh, let's host an open mic at a park where we can have, instead of 100 teens, we can have, more teens, chaperones and everything, of course, but like, we can have bigger events, and let's do it next month. And that's how basically event stuff like that happens. Like, if we want to sponsor someone, we won't know now, but when the idea comes, it'd be really nice to have the funds to be able to spend the money and make these things happen, basically.
So, you buy a 3D printer and it's a long-term investment. It provides, you hold an event, that's a short-term one-time thing, and I think there's obviously a role for both.
Mm-hmm.
And you guys are going to make that decision in collaboration with the teens, and right, I mean, and it's really a balancing, because I mean, obviously, if you have the 3D printer, you have the 3D printer all the time. You have an event, you have the event.
Right.
And so I guess your mechanism is you're going to work with the teens and come up with that and make those decisions.
That's right.
So moving on to the 3 teen activity specialists. I had some concerns when I looked at what was the requirements for this job. So explain to me how these people are going to be different. What skills are you going to look for in the different 3?
Well, I can get to. Well, I'll begin, and then I'll have Karen join me. I mean, obviously we haven't recruited yet, but what we're thinking at this point is that they are probably more near peer type of staff. That they're college students, probably going through the process. That they definitely have an interest in the the well-being of young people and the local people. I think that's important. We decided on 3 specialists because teens, like all of us, have a lot of different interests. We did consider, should we propose a full-time, person that is benefited? We're going to get a different type of employee there, and in some ways maybe more educated, more committed, that type of thing. But if you have one person, we could just maybe fund one person, maybe not even enough. We felt like that, that's not the way to go. Really, having 3 specialists that have special interests, libraries, arts, and recreation would be the way to go, and that they would independently work with teens on projects, but they could also potentially come together and do something, for the entire community as a cohort. So that's a little bit of.
I think all 3 positions would be unified by strong interpersonal skills, facilitation skills, because they'll be working really closely with local teens. For the Arts Center, we envision someone who's, this would be shared between arts and children's theater, so someone who's passionate about museums, STEAM education, so that's essentially what MakeX is.
STEAM education.
STEAM, adding art to STEM to create STEAM, and someone who's very interested in the performing arts as well. And we anticipate that we'll be able to find that person to support the arts and sciences teen programs.
So my experience has been that the people that are good at the arts are not necessarily skilled in the sciences and math. Sometimes you find that combination, but that combination is rare. So, one of you teenagers mentioned, I think it was you, mentioned you'd like someone who can design a website, can help you with coding. Those are very different skills. I'd be amazed if you find the person that has that and has all the art skills at the same time. That's a rare
And
combination.
I think in some cases we view this position as being able to kind of navigate resources with the city. So Chris Calavaro, our city webmaster, worked very closely with the Click PA team. So we envision in some ways this position as actually kind of pulling together resources that are available within the city and outside of it to make these programs successful. We have enough content specialists at the Art Center in this amazing group of teens over there that we don't necessarily need someone who's really well versed in science and engineering. We need someone who can help create opportunities for these guys to be, and gal, to be successful. So that's really what we look at for this position.
So let me just ask the teenagers, do you need someone who can basically say to you a little bit, this is how you code, or this will get you over the hump on that, or here's how you make a website? Do you need someone with technical skills, or do you need someone with soft interpersonal skills who's really good at that?
I think it's more on the interpersonal end. Certainly for the Teen Arts Council, we independently run all our events. There's generally the only time we'll get anyone helping out is for the bureaucracy of it, or for tech stuff, things like that. We have staff at the theater who will occasionally help out. But in terms of putting the events together, it would just be really helpful to have someone who can really pool resources together for us.
Okay.
So for the last year, I've been in the role of essentially doing for Click PA what these new teen specialists will continue doing. So the Click PA person will be CSD as well as Click PA. And so my duties, I know very little about coding. Actually, all of the teens know more than I do. But we still built a website, and my role really was there. I booked rooms for the teens to meet in. I made sure that everyone knew when our meetings were. I created the agendas. I asked them, are there agenda items that you think are important? And I feel like my role really was to keep the project moving, even when there wasn't a lot of momentum and we were only 2 teens, and just to kind of keep pushing the project forward and helping the teens really, target their vision and get where they want to be, because that is something that is really challenging for these kids. I mean, they're doing this as volunteers after school, in addition to a lot of other work and other stress and other considerations. So my role was really to be someone who's there for them, who makes sure they stay on track, and who helps them organize their life as Click PA volunteers. So it was also stuff like buying food for the events, right? So that they can have some refreshments when they come at 6 p.m. to to have a 4-hour meeting to code the website. So these are all sort of more, sort of event managing, program managing skills. And then in addition, we were hoping that with the 3 specialists, that they really would have more of a specific interest in that area that they're representing, but then to also really have the ability to have these 3 people inform the city back. It's like, this is what's been happening. And it has been really valuable for me to actually have started communicating with Rob about 7 months ago about ClickPA, and to have someone on the city staff that I can then check in with and say, this is what we've been doing with ClickPA. How does this fit into the bigger picture? What else is going on? How can we collaborate? What can we do? So that has been my role, and I expect that it would be a similar role for whoever comes next.
Do you see all people with similar skills then? All 3 people just in different? Or do you see them being different? Sure.
So I think for ClickPA it's a little bit different because we're not so much about sponsoring events yet. We're more just about getting the word of events that are already put on by different city organizations that are already happening with or without us. It's just that we want to kind of increase the audience and number of teen attendance. So for us, the really hard thing is making a product that's really visually appealing to teens, something that they'll remember. So unfortunately, coding and kind of web design does play a big part in that, as well as marketing. We really want to expand and kind of communicate more with local businesses and see if they can kind of offer any sort of initiatives for teen customers. So in those 2 categories, someone with more technical or marketing skills would be really helpful. But we do have assigned positions for each of the core staff members. So for example, I'm marketing manager, and as long as there's an adult who could direct me to resources that I could use to improve those skills, or maybe some a representative from the city that I could talk to about that specific thing, I think that would be fine as well. But at least in terms of ClickPA, there are definitely specific aspects that we're trying to work on in the next year.
Yeah, and we also have very specific needs for an adult mentor. Some issues we've encountered recently is that we don't have Wi-Fi for our room, and we've also been looking for a donation program to MakeX, and us, we're teens and we don't have the network as an adult mentor might have to secure Wi-Fi for MakeX, or talk with the city and secure a donation program for MakeX. And I think an adult mentor would be really useful for something like that.
Yeah, okay.
Can I just...
Programs are examples, they're not funding.
Right, and to Councilman Klein's point, I think we're not going to be looking for sort of a technical expert in any one particular area, more of a generalist. And we'll have also students on the interview panel as part of the interview process. But the last thing I would say on this is I have a bias. Really, the thing that I'm looking for is someone that can be a great mentor to young people and to teens. That these guys are doing great programming and great projects, but really what I want is for them to walk away with the experience feeling like, boy, the city cares about young people in this town, and that makes them a little bit stronger, a little more prepared as they head off to college.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I really enjoyed the presentation. This is a good example where if we provide opportunities and encourage young people to be creative and innovative, use the design thinking that, sky's the limit. It's really exciting. And it's a thrill to see this, and it's really reassuring, that things move forward and the resources that we expend, that the creativity and opportunity for students and young adults is great. I had one quick question, and that was the reference to the college tour. My only question about that is, there are a lot of organizations that do that, including the YMCA and other groups. And so is there a way to partner with other groups that are sort of conducting similar activities? I'm not saying it's not a good idea, but there are a lot of resources or coordinating, partnership opportunities where this could happen.
Great question, and we are looking at partnering with the YMCA. They don't actually provide the college tours anymore. They did for a long time, but then they stopped doing them. It's something that did come out of the focus group and surveys, that these kids wanted to see more of that.
Okay.
It was an interest to staff as well, because we like the idea of sort of broadening the perspective of what success looks like, that it's not just 10 schools you can go to, but there are hundreds of schools, thousands of schools that are quality schools. So, it's in the process of
exploring and looking at that. And the other thing is I'm curious about the bouncing stool, and if it will become fabricated, so I could get one for the city council meetings.
It's such a great question. So actually, all of the designs that were created for the MakeX furniture are available. They're open source.
Wow.
And that was one of the goals of this program, that we intended it to be a model program that could be replicated at museums and libraries throughout the country. So you can actually get the designs, and you can find a fabricator. I could perhaps give you a few of them. Hero Design was the fabricator who fabricated the pieces for MakeX, and the designs were actually done by the teens in conjunction with Nolan Tam Architects, but all on the website. And it is an amazing chair, and I do want one for my office
Okay,
as well.
well, we could take turns.
Exactly, we could share.
Okay, okay. Thank you very much. So would my colleagues like to make a motion?
I'll move that we move forward with the staff recommendation.
Thank you. Is there a second? Okay, would you like to speak to your motion?
Just briefly, I really appreciate all the work you've done on this, and I'm really pleased to see your involvement in the Click Palo Alto thing. Seems fantastic. I mean, I think you've taken what the original policy and services motion, which was to hire a staff person to develop and maintain that, and you've done it yourself. And that's a much better outcome. And I'm just really impressed with the effort you guys have put into this.
And the seconder?
Oh, just exciting. What you did today was great, is to show the accomplishments and what you're doing, the ongoing activity, and look forward a year from now to having a similar situation with maybe some concrete numbers on how many more people you have, more outreach you've made to the community.
Yes, did you want to make a comment?
Oh, yeah.
Yes, of course. Councilmember Klein.
No, I'm very excited about the program. I appreciated the examples, but I almost thought that maybe we shouldn't have had the examples, because I think we lost focus. To me, the programs are great, but I think the experience and even the academic research shows that the programs are great, but what's more important are getting teens involved with adults. And it doesn't make so much difference as to whether it's the website or a sport or the theater or some other new project. It's the contact, where the lessons of teamwork, hard work, innovation, all those are communicated from one generation to the next. And that you're going to be hiring people probably in their 20s, I think works very well, because there's just enough experience that makes a difference, and but they can still relate rather than being with old guys like me. But mentoring, I think, is really crucial, and setting examples is what counts. And great projects, but I think that's the secondary thing. It's the involvement, and for us to find programs that can involve as many kids in our community as possible, I think is crucial, because there are always kids who may go the traditional route of sports or chorus or whatever, and then there are a lot of other kids who prefer other things, and if we can reach them, I think that's great. I would like to add one thing to the motion, which I certainly endorse very strongly, and that is that staff come back with a plan for the use of the reserve.
Okay, is that a friendly proposed amendment?
Well, I don't believe in friendly amendments. I believe in amendments. So
Amendments, not friendly. Okay, it's a friendly. Okay,
They're always
always friendly.
So if they're not friendly, I guess no one
Okay,
will accept
yeah,
it.
yeah. Are you willing?
To accept or not?
No. They're not friendly. Not going to accept it. And I think I'll give my reasons, too.
Are you being serious?
I am being absolutely serious.
Okay, fine.
Well, then they got to have a second before it's.
And I'll give my reasons if you want.
I have to have a second before I can.
Second.
So, I think that staff recognizes that the money's there. And I think that staff's right, that when there's something that's really great to come forward with this, that's when we should do it. We shouldn't force staff to say, let's fritter the money away now on a program because Councilmember Klein says, let's bring it forward now, and staff feels pressure to come up with something. I'd rather see you guys come up with something on your own timescale that's great. And I mean, you're professionals, you've done a great job with this. I frankly put my trust in staff to say, we've got this idea and that's where we're gonna move forward. They're thinking about it, they know that it's money's out there, and they'll use it when they're ready to do that. And to artificially say, come back tomorrow or come back soon, is just the wrong way to go. So no, I'm not gonna support it.
We'll go back to our usual procedure where the maker speaks first and the opponents later.
That's fine.
That means I can speak again, right? Excellent.
Councilmember Klein.
Thank you. The idea of coming back with a plan doesn't say that you should spend it all this year or next year. But just for example, maybe we really need 4 employees rather than 3. Maybe we ought to start out, but this is sort of contrary to everything else we do. We don't keep huge reserves around for the idea that we might find some use for it somewhere down the line. This is, after all, the city's money. If it's not going to be used, it ought to go back into the general fund and be used for other city purposes if there's no reason for it. But if we adopted the philosophy that Councilmember Sharf was saying, we could keep back millions of dollars saying, oh, maybe something better is going to come down the road some point in the future. There's also, I think, some education here. When you're instructed to say, let's really think hard as to how we should use this money, then you're going to think hard about it, and not just say, well, it can stay there. The idea that we're going to run out of this money, I think, is not accurate, because this really is part of our general fund, and if this is a good program, the city is going to fund it one way or another. So I think that, and the last thing I would point out is, as a community, we are not overspending on our kids. We know that our school district spends less money per student than comparable school districts around the country. The city, I don't know how we compare to other cities around the country, but it's the age-old story that what we really ought to be investing in is the next generation. And so, sure, we don't want to waste the money, but I think we want to see if there are other ways that we can engage even more of our kids. As successful as we may be with these programs and with these 3 employees, you know that there's still going to be a number of kids out there in our community who we're not reaching.
All great comments, and thank you. One reason I feel the need to take a little bit of time is the pending opening of the Mitchell Park Center, which has a dedicated teen center, and we hope and expect to have a lot of programming there. But until it's open and we're running the program, there could well be something there that we want to invest in that would be fairly significant, that would draw down on the reserve. So we certainly don't want to see it sit there for years and years. That wouldn't be the idea. But also don't want to move too quickly to spend it down either. But
Why don't we put it in time limit?
I could do with 18 months.
I would suggest 6 months.
I could do 12. Otherwise, I'm
Done, 12.
Does 12 give you enough timeline? Or do you want more
you know
time?
when Mitchell Park's going to open? No,
Next week.
It's going to open.
Yeah, I know it's going to open.
Well,
but
that's a good question. I mean, would it be like 9 months from time Mitchell Park opens?
yeah,
Would that be a
it's like
choice?
having Mitchell Park open. At least 6 months, I would think would be.
All right, why don't we say 6 months from the time Mitchell Park opens?
Okay.
Right.
Is that good for you? 6
Yes,
months?
that works.
So
Because
that-
I could get you 9. I could negotiate hard.
No. So the number we have is 6 months or 9 months after Mitchell Park?
6 months from the time Mitchell Park
The
opens.
grand opening of Mitchell Park, right.
Right.
Okay. All right.
All right, I think I've accepted that.
You've accepted that. Any other comments?
Would you accept it?
Just if I could make a comment.
Okay.
I see this as the difference between a current account and a capital account. The 217 is a capital account in which you're investing in something that has a long-term life to it. So the goal isn't just to spend it, but to invest wisely.
And I would support Councilmember Schmidt 100% on that. I mean, I think it's a capital event. And I actually disagree with Councilmember Klein when he said, you know, implied it was ongoing and just all general fund money. It's not. It just comes out of a special fund.
Oh, it doesn't?
It does. It comes out of the Bryant Street garage stuff.
That's owned by, it's still, it's only by council action that it's there.
Well, I think we set it up. We have a lot of enterprise funds. That's like saying all enterprise funds are just general fund money. You know?
Let's get to the motion. Motion and amended, it's before us. Would like to take a vote. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Thank you. It passes 4-0.
Thank you all very much.
Everybody.
Good job bringing us together.
Okay, thank you. Going on to agenda item number 2. The ordinance, what we will be reviewing is the ordinance approving the use of online or electronic filing of campaign statements. If we could have a staff report.
Yes, I'd like to give a brief staff report. I currently have a contract with a firm called NetFile that the state has only certified this company to do the campaign statements, and it was in January of 2013 that the state stated that these statements could be filed electronically. This is the same company that we have the electronic filing of the conflict of interest statements, and I would like to ask the council's recommendation, the Policy and Services Committee recommendation, to forward the proposed ordinance to the council on the consent calendar to authorize the electronic filing of the campaign statements and mandate to follow the state's protocol where you would mandate that they be done with the filing of the statement of committee at the $1,000 level. So that's the criteria that sets when you need a committee. So then just to correlate it with, that would be the trigger. And that we use an opt-in rule that once you file electronically, you stay that way. This program, I think, is exciting. It's good for, I won't say it's not, it's good for city staff, clerk's office, but it's also good for the candidates. They can be doing this at home, at night, over the weekend. The public has access to it. They don't have to come down to the clerk's office, the newspapers. So I think it's a positive, and I'm open to any questions. I would like to thank Albert from the city attorney's office who worked closely with me on this proposed ordinance.
Okay, thank you very much. Colleagues, do you have any questions? Let's see here. We'll start this way. Councilmember
The
Sharp.
question was that if you had a campaign manager or somebody else who wanted to file a statement on your behalf, that you can give them access, and there's no problem with doing that, right?
Yes, you can allow that.
Treasurers or
Correct. It's the thing that we're getting away from is requiring the blue ink signature. You don't have to print it out and bring in a copy. You would be filing it, and that would be worked through, yes. Correct?
As long as it's submitted by someone who's authorized to represent the campaign, that's the important factor.
And how do you know if someone's authorized?
The statement of organization, the 410 that's filed with the Secretary of State would designate.
Yes, Councilmember Schmidt.
I guess my question was along the same lines. Confidentiality, security, as we've seen in San Francisco, these files can be extremely important and can be criminal, lead to criminal actions. So
These documents documents are public documents currently, so anybody can come in and get a copy. There's no confidentiality. These are public documents. Am I missing something? I mean,
the question is security of documents. Could someone get in and modify a name, put a number in that is not valid? Is the security of people mentioned in the documents safe?
Are you doing it because it's electronic? I'm trying to get where your questioning comes from, because these are public documents.
That makes it
I have not heard of any. There's quite a few cities which I'm,
Security breach.
I honestly don't know how to
I don't think either of
answer
us
that.
really have the technical knowledge to answer that question.
Besides saying that I mentioned current cities that currently have this, and it is with this company. This is the only company that's certified, and I have not heard in the city clerk meetings or anywhere, or read anywhere where that's been an issue.
Thank you. Yes, go ahead.
security of signature, and you control inputs into it. It's the rushed campaign.
There's no signature required when you file electronically.
So how do you guarantee that what comes in as, say, a last-minute case is actually
I'm sorry, could you repeat the last part of that question?
security in campaigns the last 10 days? There's a reporting period which is right close to the election. So if there is no signature paper that comes in, rather an electronic message, how do you guarantee
So while there's no wet signature that's required, you are required to submit basically an affirmation that the information you're submitting is truthful and that you are authorized to submit it.
Suppose someone who's not you submits something. Oh, the John Birch Society just gave
I suppose there's the same risk with a paper filing system. It doesn't strike me as something that's a new risk in the electronic world.
All I can do is to reference the 700 Statement of Economic Interest. Nobody can go into my file and change something. There's access that's set up. So I agree. I don't think.
I can help with that a little bit. I think that because it is a public forum, if there were an unauthorized submission, that would come to light relatively quickly and would probably be a reference to the police department or the district attorney's office for an investigation.
Okay, so it's incumbent on, I guess, the candidate to recognize that there's something wrong.
Well, I think if your campaign hasn't submitted their campaign disclosure and one pops up in your name that is controversial, I mean, I imagine that's the scenario you're trying to describe, where there's some sort of trickster activity there. I think that would probably be the kind of thing that folks would focus on fairly quickly and would be flushed out through. I'm sure that is a penal code violation. We could probably find one.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, any other comments? We have one speaker from the public, Herb Borak.
Thank you, Chair Price, and good evening, committee members. On the question of signature, at the end of the first paragraph of the staff report, it says that the system must include a procedure filers to comply with the requirement that they sign statements and reports under penalty of perjury. And there is some such thing as an electronic signature. So it seems to me that there should, if this is the one system that exists and that's been approved, for use, that there must be some documentation for a way to satisfy, the requirement that's stated in that paragraph. And so if nobody has that information right, at the moment this evening, hopefully by the time this goes to the council, that will be clarified so that it would alleviate any concerns that there be any mistakes, made. And I think that, there are already with court documents and other filings a way to satisfy this requirement, and I presume that's here. It's just that we don't have the details. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, did you want to make a comment, or?
Yes, just briefly, that there's a federal law, the e-Sign Act, that authorizes electronic signatures, and it defines them fairly broadly. There doesn't need to be, for example, a picture of someone's signature digitally. It's just an electronic affirmation. And the City Council last year also authorized the use of electronic signatures for city documents. So we've talked to the vendor who's told us that they meet the Secretary of State's requirements along those lines, and I don't have any concerns about that.
Okay, thank you. Councilmember Sharp.
I'll move approval. Second.
Okay, would you like to speak to your? No. Second. Okay. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Thank you. Passes 4-0. Just for a second. Okay, thank you. And agenda item number 3, discussion and recommendation to council regarding the starting time for regular Monday council meetings. And is there a staff report?
Good evening, committee members, Molly Stump, City Attorney. Just very briefly, this is an item that was referred to Policy and Services from the full council during the retreat this year. By code, the regular start time of council meetings is at 7 o'clock. Council meetings have, over the last several years, very frequently started before that, which is something that can be readily done through the mechanism of noticing the meetings as a special meeting. And there was some interest in policy discussion of whether the regular meeting time should be changed to 6 o'clock or some other time to better reflect current practice and alleviate the practice of noticing many council meetings as special meetings.
Okay, thank you. Council members, do you have any comments? Councilmember Scharf.
Yeah, I would support this. When you look at these statistics, they're fairly telling. In fact, I'm sort of surprised by them, frankly. I have to just do the math in my head. We're at 63% of them starting before 7 o'clock. When we do something like that, it's clearly the norm to start at 6 o'clock and even a little earlier. And I think by saying 6 o'clock, we move away from the special meetings. And I think it sort of does the public a disservice to tell them it starts at 7 when the meetings don't start at 7, the meetings start at 6. And we've gotten this fiction in our heads a little bit about, we start the meeting at 7, but we do study sessions beforehand. And that's sort of a fiction. I think when we say 6 o'clock, when I'm supporting that, that means the study sessions will still most likely start at 6 o'clock. It doesn't mean that study sessions necessarily start at 5 o'clock. It just tells the public that all of this starts at 6 o'clock. And it's clear and it's a regular meeting. And I think that is transparent and open, and that's what we strive for in Palo Alto. And that's why I think we should do this.
Okay, are there comments? Councilmember Schmidt.
Yeah, if this list had not starting times, but when the public meeting started, I think it still would be vastly overwhelmingly at 7. By the public meeting, I mean public comments, proclamations, and public business. The starting at 6 is usually, as you say, either a closed session or it's a special session of interest only to a limited group. And And if the goal of a meeting starting time is to say to the public, our meetings start at 7, that's when the public business starts. Seems to me 7 is closer to accurate than announcing our meetings start at 6 and there's no public business until 7.
Thank you, Councilmember Klein.
I basically agree with Councilmember Sharf. I do regard study sessions as public business. I think that actually study sessions frequently are some of the more fruitful things that we have when we educate ourselves, educate the public, even though no action is being taken and there's not any discussion either from the council members or the public. Closed sessions are another story. But not so much different with Councilmember Sharp, but put things in a little different emphasis, is that this is also a reflection that either we've become far more inefficient than our predecessors, or we have far more business than our predecessors, because there was no move to do this 10 or 20 years ago, because there was no need, because most of the meetings did indeed start at 7 o'clock. But I think we have to face reality, and calling a meeting that starts at 6 as special when it's no longer special doesn't make any sense to me. So I will support the staff recommendation that we authorize them to come back with the necessary language to change our official start time to 6.
Okay, I have one speaker from the public, Herb Borak.
Thank you. Things are different than they were before, so I like to go back with some history about what they were like 14 years ago when Frank Bennis became city manager on April 10th, 2000. At that time, there were a different relationship between the mayor and the manager in setting the agenda. Under Mr. Bennett's suggestion, approved by the council, it gave the manager more power. Another thing was that it was his recommendation to change the municipal code that the council accepted. Prior to that time, the council had regular meetings the first 4 Mondays of the month instead of the first 3 Mondays of the month. Also, the council, at the recommendation of the city manager and not by city manager fiat and doing it herself, June Fleming came to the council and suggested that different weeks had different business. The study sessions were a particular week of the month. Planning items were a particular week of the month. Also, the council was the body that referred items to its standing committees. It was not the staff that brought something to committee. The staff would place something that's council's consent agenda, which was referral to committee, so that all items in committee were something that came from the council. In the past 5 years, you've started having agendas with lots of things taking up your time that are not action items. But it's also taking up the public's time, which the public doesn't know either when there's going to be public comment on oral communications or when there's going to be a particular action item. Since the beginning of last year, you've placed times on the meetings and then said, oh, by the way, those aren't the real times, it's whenever they're going to happen. And by the way, at 6 o'clock when you have to come and sit here to find out when your item's going to start, the council's going to be in closed session probably having dinner. My suggestion is you leave it at 7 o'clock, and if you have things that you need to do that you can't fit in the current meetings, for example, last evening, as I recall, there was a suggestion to have afternoon meetings. Fine. Have your closed sessions in the afternoon. The public can't attend those, although, of course, they can be there at the beginning and at the end. Do what was done in the past. Have the study sessions on a separate week. Restore the 4 meetings a month and have one of those weeks for your study sessions. Remove all the things from the beginning of the meeting that take up time that are really not meant for the public. We never had part of the agenda for city manager comments before until the current city manager. And I believe it's not just related to how the meetings run, it's also come to the point where actions are being taken before the council makes a policy. The signs were placed for Recanata Library before the council voted on
Could
that.
you wind it up, please?
Right. And the second example, a letter was sent
Please wind it up.
for money for Caltrain electrification before the council decided. It said, well, it's already been sent. I guess we can't contradict that. They're all connected.
Okay, thank you very much. Okay. Did you make an official motion, or I'm willing to entertain a motion?
I move that we direct staff to come back with the necessary language to change the official start time to 6 o'clock.
I'll second that.
Okay. Would you like to speak to your motion? Or you?
No.
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? It passes 4-0. Thank you. Okay.
I have a question. Is that the official language going to come back here before we send it to council?
The plan would be, it's a very straightforward ordinance. It simply crosses out the number 7 and replaces it with the number 6. I would recommend that this just go straight to council.
Yeah, thank you. Good, that makes sense. Okay, thank you. Okay, the next item is future meetings and agendas, and at your places, we've been given a list of items, agenda items and items that will be coming back to Policy and Services. I have requested that this be brought to our meetings every Policy and Services meeting so we can keep better track of what's before us. And I did want to make a quick comment about the federal and state legislative update, which is proposed for the 5/13 agenda. And my question/comment is as follows. Will this include the lobbyists that we have contracts with, or will this be a presentation by the city manager?
Thank you, Chair Price. The lobbyists, both the state and federal lobbyists, will be in attendance. They're going to do updates, and we're also going to have for you the guiding principles document for you for review. There's currently one in place you reviewed last spring. We want to bring that back, update it, have you review it, and then ultimately that'll be council. So this is going to be very comprehensive.
Great, because my original intent was that the lobbyists be there. I know with the federal lobbyists, that's the case. So the comment I was going to make about the criteria used to determine which items the city will take a position on, et cetera, will be addressed in the context of reviewing the principles so that it's very clear what the process is, what the staff uses as sort of guiding principles in terms of its treatment of legislation or pending legislation.
That is correct, and since the state legislative advocate is new this year, that's going to be incorporated with the guiding principles that have been directing staff action towards the federal legislative program. So we're looking at a very clear presentation for you on what our all-encompassing legislative program will be.
And one more question for the state lobbyist. Will they be addressing the legislation alerts that are created by the California League of Cities? And will they be coming forward with a list of items for consideration at a future meeting? Or will there be actually real detail related to the various legislative items that the League is following?
There will be, and staff is already working with them to track those items that the league is putting out. So at this time, we're operating under the existing guiding principles that we have, and we're working with them tracking that legislation. However, as I said, we'd like to make sure those are updated and they're back in front of you for your input and direction.
Great, okay, thank you. And other colleagues' comments? Oh, excuse me, on this?
You covered everything I had in mind. So
Oh, fine, so done?
I'm done.
Okay, done on that. Okay, since I have the microphone, I'll just make my second comment. As I spoke to City Manager Keene about this a couple days ago, the issue of the Stanford funds, the last item on the second page, the healthcare allocation review is sort of was at the community and health benefit category of the Stanford Development Agreement. and I can't remember when this came before us before, it was quite a while ago. We talked about the allocation of other parts of the agreement that were more capital project related. But in terms of the health, community health and benefits, this is one that we really do need to address, I would say sooner rather than later, because there are a lot of nonprofits and others who are interested in being involved in this process, and we do need to give some guidance. So, because I'll be talking to Jim Keene about the scheduling of this, and do colleagues have any requests about potential scheduling for this item, or should I just confer with him and try to get it moving as fast as possible?
Yeah, moving as fast.
Reasonable? Good, okay, because this one is of particular interest to me and others. Okay.
So-
Colleagues, did you have other comments? Councilmember Schmidt, Scharf.
That's okay, Greg.
I've only made that mistake once in about 4
Don't worry,
years.
it's your turn. Everyone's made that mistake.
Yeah.
Even I call myself.
Yeah,
Councilmember.
yeah.
If you don't like what I did, Councilmember Schmidt.
At least I didn't call you Councilmember Holman or Councilmember somebody else. Okay, go for it.
A couple things. So, I want to see the smoking ordinance revision come back as soon as possible. I'm very unhappy that it's not come forward already and it's not scheduled. There's not a lot of work. And the reason I want it coming as soon as possible is it's a two-step process. We need to have direction, and we're going to talk about outreach, and then I assume it'll come back to the committee after we have the results of the outreach, and then it'll go to City Council. And I would like to wrap this up before the end of the year. So I view that as probably my top priority on this with the Stanford Health Funds. The other thing I'm going to say is that this is the first time I've served on this committee, and this is really not directed at you, Richard, but I'm going to say it anyway, is that I find that all the TBDs to be very concerning. I feel like no one's sitting here in staff and thinking about this. When you serve on Finance Committee, they have a schedule, you sort of have a sense of what's coming up. Staff seems to put a lot more thought into it and a lot more, and I don't feel like we're getting that staff support. Now, I realize there's been a lot of changes in that, but go back and tell them I expect better.
And I'll work with the city manager in getting dates to all of these so we can move ahead, because I agree. And as I mentioned, we're going to have this at every meeting, so it's very clear in terms of our next steps and what our priorities are. Do people have other comments about items of interest or concern that you want to add to the list at this point? No? Okay, so do you have any questions about what we've said? And you're just here on an interim basis.
I'm subbing in for our colleagues as they're gone, but I will be back before you on a regular basis with the legislature.
Great, great. But there will be someone else assigned to the committee as on an ongoing basis? Okay.
Well, Gail, now that you sort of opened it up, I've been thinking that I have a couple of colleagues' memos that I have in mind, and maybe I don't need to write them if we can get them on the agenda.
Just put them on the agenda.
Well, one is to add to the smoking ordinance revision the possibility of governing e-cigarettes.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Me and Gail had that discussion yesterday on the phone, so we're with you on that.
And tobacco products. Okay.
Well,
Maybe not, okay.
There's no problem with that, because we've always said that you can schedule things at a meeting. We're not taking any action. That's why we allow that to happen when council comments, when two council members during council comments say that they want to agendize, I don't know, whatever, then that's sufficient to get it on the agenda. This is the equivalent. So that while you're looking,
So not at all, just to clarify, so this is to add electronic cigarettes, that's the common sort of
Yeah.
trade name, and various cities are adding those
Right.
to their locational restrictions. So it's very common in Palo Alto does have locational restrictions, Councilmember Sharp was talking about expanding them. And so Councilmember Klein's addition to that item would be to add to the definition of smoking devices, not just the combustion of tobacco, but the use of the electronic
And the other one,
Before we leave that, Gail mentioned
Yes.
tobacco products, and that doesn't necessarily mean I support either the e-cigarettes or the tobacco products, but since we're doing this, I have no problem with looking at it in a comprehensive way.
Mhm.
And other cities
They are
also have
looking at
locational on
both.
tobacco products.
Mhm.
So I think we should just add it in and be more comprehensive.
We can always strip it out later. Okay.
just for agendizing. The second one was that I've noticed that in our future agendas, that Molly, you have an item on various potential charter changes, such as term limits and so forth and so on.
That item is scheduled to come back directly to the full council.
Yes, but you triggered the thought in my mind that this committee, or we ought to be considering, if we're going to do that, maybe you ought to open it up to all of those other ones that are always being suggested. I think yours is just limited to the term limits.
So the council had directed
Yes.
last year to address two issues, term limits and the transitional time.
Yes,
That
Sorry, I
the
forgot
council members take their seat.
Right.
There were also some additional items that we will not be drafting language on. We haven't been directed to do that, but will be mentioned in the staff report, which include a question of whether the council should look at the methodology for setting council member compensation, also the
Number of seats, yeah.
Well, that was what I was getting to, that I think that this committee ought to look at the compensation, number of seats, direct election of mayor, did I say the number of seats? Yeah, I did.
Mhm.
That's all right.
Mhm.
And if you think the council directed me to come back to council directly rather than this committee, I would think that it ought to be, the whole package ought to be considered by this committee and then forwarded to the council.
I don't think that was the council direction, though. I'm concerned that I feel like we're preempted on that in that council, I thought there was a specific meeting on this and it was directed
It's
to come
on
back.
a tentative agenda.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but I'm sure Molly is right, but, well, maybe we move then to send it back to P&S for a comprehensive look at the
That would be the appropriate thing, in my view, of what to do at council, rather than us just taking the authority to do that.
The only issue there, council members, would be with respect to the timing. Because of course, to place something on this fall's ballot, we are looking at the first meeting in August as being
Yes,
the absolute final date.
Okay, well then, when is it? Well, the problem with that, Greg, is that I think we mentioned 5 or 6 items, and only 2 of them are coming back directly to the council.
I plan to agendize the item to give the council sufficient flexibility to raise any additional issues related to council member seats. And I could say in the staff report that if the council wished to refer it to committee, that would be an option that council.
That would be helpful.
Just also did want to mention, I have talked to the city clerk's office about the possibility of having two meetings on 1 or 2 months between now and November, so that we can make sure we have time, if these, to get all these items on the agenda. So just to alert that I will probably be making that proposal. I don't know which months, but to see if you're available.
I will tell you that you don't have any choice. It's either May or June.
May, June, and maybe September, but May, June is better.
No, if you're going to put anything on the ballot, it's got to be by.
Oh, no, I'm not talking about just the ballot items. So we could look at May and June. That would give us kind of a real, the cadence that we need for the timing. Yes.
I recall that there was some discussion of the city auditor that roughly half of the audits would come to the Policy and Services Committee, as well as to the Finance Committee, so that the auditor has an opportunity to work with all the council members. And I note that the audits themselves tend to be going to the Finance Committee, and yet we get the auditor's quarterly report. Seems to me we're missing out some of the substance.
Your procedures encourage you to avoid, and it is a good idea to avoid sending the same issue to both committees.
No.
I believe the structure for audits is that the audits customarily come to this committee, except for utilities-related audits, which go to finance.
That was my recollection of how we changed it, which is the way you remember it then. That everything that's non-utilities related as an audit comes to this committee. And
But
have they
like-
not been doing that?
Well, like the inventory audit did not come here.
Right, the inventory audit should have come here.
I believe it was a mix of utilities and non-utility public works IT issues. So it may have been, I'm not familiar.
So we
with
really,
those, but
we
maybe
really
some
need
of
to
it was-
clarify that to make sure
Yeah.
that the routing is correct.
And I think the previous audit also did not come here, so maybe you could just take a look at that.
Okay. And I just have a general comment. I don't know if I really even have the phraseology at this point, but the sustainability presentation last night, there were several items in that that may warrant coming to policy and services. So I'm going to go back and look at that, and that may go the colleagues' memo route, I'm not sure. But some of the items on this list actually touch on a couple of those issues that were raised last night in the discussion during the study session.
So I'm going to go out on a limb too and say, I actually like us to agendize what Eduardo Martinez talked about in terms of the ARB and that structure to come to this committee. I actually thought that was well thought out, and I think it is a problem that the ARB gets things when they're too far along the process. And so I'd like to agendize that if other council members.
Structure, roles, process, that
Right,
kind
of
of
how
thing.
the ARB works and when they get the stuff.
Okay.
Well, we're on a roll.
Okay.
While we're on a roll,
Yeah,
I'm
I
going to
have
suggest that we
lots
have
of-
2 meetings or 3 meetings if
Okay,
we continue
I
this.
have lots of colleagues' memos that are in draft form, but I'm not going to mention them here.
And this is one that I've discussed with Molly to some degree, and that is city policies with regard to our new social media businesses, Airbnb, and what's the one for transportation? Uber. And their competitors. The issues being, well, particularly for Airbnb, whether we're getting our transit occupancy tax, and for Uber as to whether they're subject to our taxi rules or not.
They're not.
They're
The
not.
Public Utilities Commission has said it. They're not.
Uber, Lyft.
And since they've already said it, I don't think we should agendize it.
I'm not sure. Well, I'll leave it to Molly.
So the Public Utilities Commission did issue a rule that characterized them as, I forget the term of art, maybe Councilmember Sharp remembers, it falls into the PUC jurisdiction. My understanding is there
Yes,
still
for
are
an
some
information item.
jurisdictions that are looking at regulating around the edges, and so there do remain some questions as to the regulation of those entities, but they're not taxi businesses subject primarily to city regulation.
Okay, for the moment, I'll focus much more on, I'm much more interested in the Airbnb since that at least has the potential for costing us money.
So, Councilmember Klein, maybe perhaps at the risk of getting ahead of myself a little bit, we have had some extensive discussions at the staff level between the Attorney's Office, Planning Department, and then a little bit with the city manager about these issues, Airbnb, VRBO, and those types of expediters of setting up these sort of incidental, casual type of short-term rentals. And there are really 2 sets of issues. The one is the one you identify, which is we do believe that our TOT does apply to
maybe on that part it is, but on the taxing portion, I think it's an immediate problem. I mean, I have no idea how significant it is, but I did reading in one of the publications I read just today that the Airbnb CEO had really very arrogant statements to the effect that, well, we're just different. We're not subject to any of this stuff.
They are subject to it. We
No,
think
no,
it's clear. So
yeah.
with the 2015, my 2015 reference referred to the larger
yes.
policy question about how you want this activity to occur or not in Palo.
Well, so let me still respond to you. I think on the taxation side that we should have
Yep.
this on our agenda in May or June, just so that we begin to surface it to the public. That people may not realize that they're clearly are subject to the tax. I think that the public needs to be a lot of public discussion. It's great that you're discussing it with staff, but that doesn't get to the public awareness situation. We may not.
Yeah, we're happy to do that at the
Okay.
chair's discretion.
Yes, no,
We're
I-
ready to do it whenever you want.
Yeah, I concur with his comments. I mean, there are a lot of issues around this.
Yeah, and the second portion of it, where things aren't clear, we may have to change the ordinances and so forth. Again, I think we ought to be starting the dialogue, and people can start giving us input. Again, staff stuff is great, but this is going to, whether it's legal or what, is going to concern the public and our hotel owners, motel owners, and so forth. And we ought to get out ahead of it rather than wait till it blows up in our face.
I think the issue of enforcement is a critical one on this one, too.
Whenever you're ready to schedule it, we can support that.
Okay, so why don't, all right, so we're talking possible May and June. Okay, so we have minutes here, we have a growing list of items, and then I'll just talk to the city manager. We've expressed our preferences regarding scheduling for some of these items.
Let's talk about-
Any other comments?
I do. Amendments to the fire code. Do we really have to talk about this? Isn't this something that staff should then put on, decide what's right and then put on consent? I mean, what's the policy issue? Do I not want life safety provisions that bring Palo Alto into line in the county? I mean, why is that a policy issue that we need to discuss? Why is that just simply not on consent? And if we want to pull it off consent from council, we do so. I mean, I don't know what I have to say about this other than, yeah, seems like a good idea.
Yeah.
If it's straightforward and in line with county standards, you're right, you can go straight.
Right, right.
Let's do that.
We probably, in the past, in the future, we should have not only the status, the rationale, why is it before us or not, or proposed to be before us. I agree with what you said.
And now the Palo Alto Green Building Ordinance could be really interesting to discuss, and it could not be, depending on how staff is doing it. So if it's really interesting and it's interesting policy issues that we should discuss, I'd like to hear it. But if it's something that's non-controversial and really is obvious, I'm not so sure that wouldn't go on consent, depending on what we're doing.
The past ones have come to us because there's a lot of community interest in the Green Building Code.
Okay. No, I mean, if it's interesting, that's great, but
But there's a lot of community interest in input on that one, too, so,
That strikes me as more of a discretionary item, but we can check on that as well.
okay.
And then, yeah, I would like to see someone to interface with the auditor's department, figure out what audits they're doing, and get those audits that we're supposed to be hearing, if there's going to be any audits this year as well on this.
Okay, so we'll be in touch about a doodle for this schedule. I've been talking about this for 6 weeks, so, okay, there we go. Okay, any other comments? No, okay, the meeting's adjourned.